I've watched it. I came looking for home.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
In the vast silence of space, where the black between stars seems to breathe like a living thing, there exists a legend whispered among mercenaries, soldiers, and ghosts of empires long dead. His name carries weight even in systems that have never seen his face. Riddick, Richard B. Riddick, convict, survivor, killer, and reluctant savior, has walked through every layer of darkness the galaxy could conjure. Yet in all the violence, in every planet burned and every foe broken beneath his will, there has always been one unanswered question burning at the core of his story. Where did he come from? That question, buried beneath 2 decades of blood and exile, becomes the heart of Riddick, Furya, a film that aims not merely to continue a saga but to close a cosmic circle. The chronicle of Riddick began in the heat-soaked shadows of pitch black, when a transport ship crashed on an uncharted desert world and a convict became the reluctant protector of the few who lived. That film gave the galaxy a character of paradox, monstrous yet moral, a man who could see in the dark but was always searching for light. The chronicles of Riddick turned the myth into something mythological, casting him against the empire of the necromongers, half-religious, half-mechanized zealots who sought to convert or annihilate entire species. A decade later, Riddick stripped the scope back down to raw survival, a single man marooned once again, proving that his fury was not just physical but existential. Each chapter hinted at his heritage, the word Furya spoken like a curse or a prayer. The 4th film promises to unveil what those whispers have guarded for so long. David Twohy, the architect of the Riddick universe, returns once more to direct and write. His partnership with Vin Diesel has become a rare bond of trust between actor and filmmaker, a union of physical performance and philosophical intent. Together they built a mythology that has outlived countless other science fiction franchises, not because of massive budgets or sprawling crossovers, but because of tone, a hybrid of pulp survivalism and existential poetry. Riddick, Furya extends that tone into the realm of origins. It is not just about where Riddick was born, it is about why such a world could forge a man like him, and whether he was ever meant to escape it. The story opens on the edge of the known galaxy, where the remnants of necromonger control have crumbled into warring fragments. Riddick, once crowned Lord Marshal against his will, has abandoned the throne. He carries only his weapons, his ship, and the constant hum of memory that draws him toward the coordinates whispered to him in the dying words of a Furyan seer. Space travel here is not romantic. It is cold, predatory, almost primeval. The film's early images, based on production concept leaks, are described as wide, slow pans through derelict fleets, metal carcasses orbiting dead suns, the echo of fallen civilizations that mirror the extinction of Furya itself. The sound design reportedly balances near silence with heartbeat-like percussion, underscoring Riddick's isolation. Vin Diesel's portrayal has matured into something more than muscle and menace. He moves slower now, not from weakness but from weight, the burden of being the last of a people who may not be gone after all. In one sequence, Riddick receives a transmission intercepted from deep space, encrypted with ancient Furyan glyphs. The message is not a plea for rescue, it is a challenge, a reminder that he was not the only one to survive. This is the call that propels him toward his birthplace, the same world once said to have been burned from orbit. Furya, as imagined by Twohy's new production design team, is no longer a myth but a fractured ecosystem of extremes. Early concept reports describe continents split by chasms glowing with geothermal fire, oceans that shimmer with metallic minerals, and sky patterns perpetually torn by magnetic storms. It is a world that seems to reject all life, and yet has somehow kept fragments of it alive. Riddick's arrival here is treated as both homecoming and intrusion. He steps onto soil that remembers his blood, and the planet itself seems to react. The environmental systems in the film, rendered through a blend of practical sets and digital landscapes, aim to make Furya feel like a character, volatile, grieving, and sentient in its hostility. The narrative arc slowly transitions from personal to cosmic. Riddick discovers that small enclaves of Furyans survived underground, preserved by cryogenic technology abandoned during the Great Purge. These survivors are not the noble warriors of legend but fractured remnants, generations born in hiding, mistrusting their own myths. They see Riddick not as a savior but as a relic, a man whose violence reflects the very chaos that doomed them. This internal conflict grounds the story. Can a species built on fury ever find peace without losing its identity? Behind the camera, the production draws on an international collaboration that mirrors the film's hybrid tone. Shooting locations in Spain's volcanic regions are chosen to represent the scorched beauty of Furya's surface, while soundstage work in Germany and the United Kingdom will host the subterranean cities and starship interiors. Cinematographer Stefan Supek is expected to use a palette of deep reds, obsidian blacks, and flashes of silver, the color of Riddick's eyes, creating visual poetry that mirrors his inner tension between darkness and illumination. Diesel's involvement goes far beyond acting. As producer through his One Race Films banner, he has spent years lobbying studios to greenlight the fourth installment, often sharing behind-the-scenes images and personal messages to fans. For him, the Furyan story is not just another sequel but the culmination of a 20-year mythology. He has described it publicly as a return to origin and to truth, a phrase that echoes through fan communities as both promise and prophecy. The tone of Riddick, Furya differs from its predecessors by balancing ferocity with spirituality. It is less about survival against monsters and more about survival against destiny itself. Reports from early drafts suggest sequences where Riddick undergoes a psychic test left behind by the ancient Furyan order, confronting spectral versions of himself, each representing stages of his evolution from predator to protector. Toohey's writing often frames such moments not as fantasy but as the hallucinations of a man too long alone, leaving viewers to decide whether the mysticism is real or psychological. Music has always been a quiet strength of the Riddick films, and for this installment the score is expected to fuse orchestral elements with industrial soundscapes, evoking the primal heartbeat of a world that never truly died. Sources close to the production note that the soundtrack is designed to swell and fade like breathing, aligning with Riddick's internal rhythm as he accepts his role as both heir and heretic. While plot secrecy remains tight, leaks suggest a secondary storyline involving a mercenary faction that tracks Riddick to Furya, believing rumors of Furyan artifacts capable of controlling life energy itself. Their intrusion reignites the ancient war that once consumed the planet, forcing Riddick to lead the reluctant survivors in a defense that could either save or finally destroy their species. The climax reportedly blends large-scale battle sequences with personal reckoning, blurring the line between myth and memory. The production phase, according to trade publications, is structured around a lean yet visually ambitious model, similar to the 2013 film's independent approach but with upgraded technology. Rather than rely on blockbuster spectacle, Toohey continues to emphasize texture and atmosphere, dust, heat, sweat, the tactile realism that makes even alien worlds feel painfully human. The camera reportedly lingers longer on silence, on faces lit by reflected fire, on the moment before violence rather than the violence itself. Diesel's physical transformation for the role returns to the minimalist intensity of pitch black. His movements are calculated, animalistic, but there is an undercurrent of weariness, as if every muscle remembers every survival. This time, though, he is surrounded by other Furyans, each with their own variation of the gift, or curse, of enhanced perception. Through them, the film explores the idea that seeing in the dark is more than biological. It is symbolic of a people forced to adapt to eternal night. Production stills revealed in trade previews describe sets built around massive stone rings and subterranean temples inscribed with energy lines that pulse when touched. These visual motifs tie directly to the theme of rebirth. The Furyans are a race trying to reconnect a severed soul, and Riddick becomes the bridge between who they were and what they must become. The director's approach draws from mythic storytelling traditions, echoing the archetype of the warrior who returns home to find that home has become legend. Part of the film's intrigue lies in its balance between familiar grit and expanded mythology. Toohey has mentioned in interviews that the script intentionally walks the line between science fiction and dark fantasy. The planetary systems, while technologically explained, are described with almost spiritual awe. The Furyans' genetic alterations, once considered mere evolutionary quirks, are reframed as a deliberate response by the universe itself, a cosmic adaptation to the chaos of creation. From a production standpoint, Riddick, Furya also represents a shift in independent filmmaking strategy. Funded through partnerships with Rocket Science and Thank You Studios, the project bypasses traditional studio oversight to maintain creative control. This independence allows Tuhi and Diesel to craft a film truer to their vision, free from the constraints of mass-market formula. Their gamble echoes Riddick's own ethos: survival through defiance. The film's schedule, according to recent reports, positions it firmly in the mid-production phase with an anticipated completion window in the next 2 years, depending on post-production complexity. The release window being discussed in industry circles suggests a possible late-decade debut, giving the creative team time to perfect the fusion of practical effects and digital landscapes. Within fan communities, anticipation has reached a fever pitch. Online discussions dissect every piece of concept art and every quote from Diesel's social media updates. The term, "Return to Furya," has become both a tagline and a rallying cry. For longtime followers of the franchise, the promise of finally seeing the Furyan homeworld is more than narrative satisfaction, it's a resolution 2 decades in the making. Thematically, the film grapples with cycles of violence and the possibility of transcendence. Riddick has always been an embodiment of rage refined into survival. Here he faces the challenge of turning that survival into creation. If the earlier films were about escaping extinction, Furya is about defining what comes after survival, how a people reclaim their identity without repeating the mistakes that doomed them. The visual storytelling amplifies these ideas. Every frame, according to the production notes, is designed around duality: light versus shadow, fire versus ice, technology versus instinct. Even the sound design echoes this balance: deep mechanical groans offset by delicate choral whispers, as if the planet itself were singing its own requiem. Part 1 closes here with the camera metaphorically orbiting the resurrected world, a sphere of wounded beauty shimmering in the void, and Riddick standing at its surface, a silhouette against the storm that might either cleanse or consume. The keynote continues beyond this point into the unfolding conflict, the emotional reckoning, and the eventual legacy that Riddick, Furya aims to carve into the chronicles of modern science fiction. As the dark winds of Furya roll over the broken plains, the silence between storms begins to hum like the pulse of a sleeping giant. The surface is a graveyard of memories: twisted metal half buried in glassy sand, bones fossilized in the shadows of ancient wars, and rivers that run thick with the dust of extinction. Riddick walks across this desolation, every step echoing in a world that remembers him, a planet scarred by the same fury that shaped his soul. He does not know if the ghosts that haunt these ruins are real, or simply the weight of his bloodline pressing against time. The film's middle act opens in a realm between nightmare and rebirth. The Furyans who survived beneath the surface live in caverns lit by bioluminescent minerals, blue-white veins of light threading through stone like frozen lightning. Their society is primitive and advanced all at once, worshipping the fragments of old technology, speaking a language half-spoken, half-felt, built from vibration and breath. When Riddick enters their hidden domain, they greet him not as a savior but as a threat. To them, he is an echo of the old wars, the one whose blood carries the rage that nearly destroyed their world. It is here that Riddick encounters the film's second major figure, a leader known only as Alara, a Furyan woman born after the fall, her eyes silver like his, her body marked by the same genetic scars. She is both warrior and philosopher, guardian of the last flame of their culture. Through her, Riddick learns that the Furyans were not simply hunted to extinction, they turned on each other in a final act of desperation, their own power consuming them. The Necromonger purge was only the final blow. The real killer was what they carried inside. Their first meeting is not one of recognition but of confrontation. Alara attacks without warning, testing his strength, his speed, his instincts. The choreography of this scene is rumored to be raw and grounded, captured in long takes with minimal cuts. The two move like reflections of one another, every strike a mirror of the other's memory. When the fight ends, either wins. Instead, there is an unspoken understanding. They are both what remains of a world that refused to die. Riddick begins to learn of the Furyan creed, the belief that every Furyan is born carrying a fragment of the planet's soul. The more one fights, the stronger that connection grows, but so does the madness. It was this cycle that destroyed them, and the surviving elders sealed themselves underground to escape their own nature. Riddick, who has lived his entire life on the edge of rage, becomes the living paradox they both fear and need. He is the proof that fury can survive without consuming itself. The tone of the film shifts from desolate exploration to introspective revelation. Riddick's journey through the subterranean world of Furya becomes a journey through his own psyche. The cinematography reportedly reflects this by gradually dimming external light until the only illumination comes from the glow of Furyan energy within their bodies. The effect creates a haunting contrast, a world of darkness lit from within, a visual metaphor for a people learning to see through their own fury. Meanwhile, the outside universe continues to close in. Word of Riddick's return to Furya spreads through the mercenary networks. An interstellar warlord known as Craven Voss, a former necromonger general turned pirate lord, sees the Furyan homeworld as the ultimate conquest, a place of lost technology and spiritual power. His armada moves through the outer systems, guided by greed and superstition. In his hands is a shard of ancient Furyan crystal, stolen from a necromonger vault, said to contain the Echo Code, a resonance frequency capable of bending the will of those born of Furya. Back on the planet, Alara warns Riddick that if outsiders breach the surface, the planet itself may awaken defensively. Furya, in this mythology, is not dead but dreaming, its core still alive and reactive to Furyan life. The film uses this idea to blend science fiction with cosmic spirituality, the notion that a world can remember its children, and in remembering, it can lash out. Production details released in early interviews reveal that Tuhi and his effects team have designed the planet's response like a biological nervous system. Tremors become signals, lightning becomes communication, and the atmosphere itself changes color based on emotional resonance. The idea is that Furya was never merely a planet, it was a living organism synchronized with the Furyans themselves. Their destruction was also a self-inflicted wound to the planet's consciousness. As Riddick begins to understand this connection, he is drawn into ritual chambers where the surviving Furyans store their history. These sequences blend holographic projection with memory transference. When Riddick touches the relics, he relives visions of the old world before its fall, cities that floated on magnetic fields, temples carved into mountains that breathed fire, children trained from birth to harness fury as both weapon and prayer. Through these visions, Riddick finally sees the moment his people died, an internal uprising led by a corrupted order of Furyan seers who sought to weaponize their energy. The necromongers arrived not as conquerors but as scavengers of a civilization that had already burned itself. This revelation becomes the emotional crux of the film. Riddick's lifelong hatred for the necromongers is replaced by a deeper sorrow, the realization that his people were not victims but participants in their own extinction. His fury, once pure survival instinct, becomes guilt. He begins to question whether the universe kept him alive to avenge his race or to redeem it. Alara sees his turmoil and offers a path that is both redemptive and terrifying, to reconnect the Furyan consciousness by awakening the planet's heart. Doing so could restore their people but might also unleash the same destructive energy that once tore them apart. The dilemma is moral, not just physical. Can a species defined by wrath evolve into something greater without erasing what made it unique? As the third act builds, Craven Voss's armada descends upon Furya, shattering the planet's fragile peace. The invaders bring with them towering drop ships, armored drones, and relic weaponry scavenged from necromonger ruins. The battle that follows is filmed not as spectacle but as apocalypse. The Furyans, uniting under Riddick and Alara, fight with both desperation and awe. The planet responds to their collective emotion, storms intensify, the ground quakes, fire erupts from fault lines as if the world itself were roaring in fury. Riddick takes command reluctantly, not as a hero but as one who understands the cost of leadership. His strategy mirrors his survivalist instincts: misdirection, ambush, and calculated brutality. The choreography of these sequences reportedly relies heavily on practical stunts, emphasizing physicality and exhaustion. The Furyans fight not with polished grace but with primal rhythm, as if each movement were part of a forgotten dance of war. During the chaos, Craven Voss activates the Echo Code. A resonant wave ripples through the battlefield, paralyzing Furyans with psychic overload. Riddick falls to his knees, visions flooding his mind, faces of ancestors screaming, flames swallowing cities, the sound of children crying beneath burning skies. This is the moment of choice. Alara, also trapped within the resonance, reaches for him through the haze, urging him to control the fury rather than be consumed by it. What follows is described in script notes as the awakening. Riddick channels his rage not outward but inward, stabilizing it, converting fury into clarity. The planet reacts. The storm ceases. Time seems to slow. He becomes the conduit between Furya and its people, absorbing the energy meant to destroy them. His eyes, long a symbol of mutation, now blaze with pure white light, reflecting not rage but unity. The resonance that once enslaved becomes the pulse of rebirth. The climactic battle turns from destruction to transcendence. The Furyans rise, their pain transformed into strength. The invaders, blinded by their own greed, are swallowed by the planet's awakening, engulfed in molten light as Furya reclaims its lost children. Craven Voss faces Riddick in a duel amid collapsing ruins, their silhouettes framed against the sky splitting open with radiant fire. The fight is brutal, elemental, yet intimate, a mirror of the opening battle with Alara, but now filled with purpose. Riddick defeats Voss not with vengeance but with restraint, choosing mercy for the first time in his life. In the aftermath, the surviving Furyans gather around the planet's newly awakened heart, a massive crystalline core pulsing beneath the surface. Riddick stands before it, exhausted, illuminated by the glow of a world reborn. Alara tells him that Furya no longer needs a savior, it needs a shepherd. But Riddick, true to his nature, cannot remain. He belongs to the space between worlds, the wilderness where light and shadow blur. He leaves Furya behind, not as an exile but as a guardian, carrying its rebirth within him. The final image of the film, according to early concept reports, shows his ship rising into orbit as the planet glows like a newborn star behind him. His voiceover, calm and weary, speaks of home not as a place but as something earned. The tone is elegiac rather than triumphant, closing the circle that began decades ago. From a thematic standpoint, Riddick, Furya transforms the antihero narrative into a myth of reconciliation. It asks whether a being born in darkness can ever find peace without extinguishing the fire that kept him alive. Tuhi's script, always sparse and meditative beneath its action, deepens this question into something almost spiritual. In Riddick's fury lies the seed of evolution, the idea that anger, when understood, becomes energy, and energy becomes creation. As production nears completion, reports suggest a visual design philosophy centered on the balance between ruin and renewal. The world of Furya is never fully healed, its scars remain visible, glowing like reminders of the past. This realism in fantasy grounds the story in emotional truth. Redemption does not erase history, it transforms it into wisdom. In the larger context of science fiction cinema, Riddick, Furya represents a rare return to auteur-driven storytelling. While franchises chase universes and timelines, Tuhi and Diesel pursue legacy. Their collaboration embodies a trust that few actor-director duos sustain for so long. Diesel's commitment to Riddick is not commercial, it's personal. He once described the character as the voice that speaks when the world stops listening. In this film, that voice speaks not to others but to himself. Part 2 closes with that image, the ship vanishing into the dark beyond the stars, the echo of Furya fading into the hum of space. The story is not finished, but something fundamental has shifted. The fury that once destroyed has become creation, and the man who once fled every world he touched finally leaves one behind that will survive. The silence after rebirth carries a strange gravity. Riddick's ship cuts through that silence, a black shape sliding between nebulae like a memory refusing to die. Space has never been kind to him, it is a reflection of his own nature, endless, cold, and filled with hidden light. Yet now, after Furya's awakening, something feels altered. The galaxy that once seemed to push him away begins to draw him inward, as if acknowledging that the man it once hunted has become something elemental, no longer bound by the same rules that governed mortals. Time passes differently in the void. Riddick lives between breaths of civilization, scavenging, watching, listening. The networks of mercenaries, bounty hunters, and smugglers whisper again of his name, but this time with reverence instead of fear. Some say he died saving a lost world, others claim he found the heart of darkness and bent it to his will. He knows none of that matters. Legends grow from misunderstanding. All that matters is that Furya breathes again, and its pulse follows him wherever he goes. In the distance, the scars of the Necromonger War still burn. Vast fleets drift without command, derelict temples orbit dead suns, and the remnants of converted soldiers roam like ghosts without faith. Riddick drifts through these ruins, drawn by instinct. He scavenges for fuel and supplies, but more than that, he searches for answers, echoes of what the universe has become in the wake of Furya's reawakening. The visual tone of these sequences returns to the haunted minimalism that defined Pitch Black, desolate, cold, wrapped in silence and shadow. The film's color palette narrows to muted blues and silvers, representing not despair but detachment. Riddick moves through the wreckage of old empires as if walking through his own past, touching the steel bones of a civilization that mirrors his own history, built on conquest, consumed by pride, and finally devoured by its own creations. It is during one such passage through the wreck of a Necromonger dreadnought that Riddick encounters the echo of something new. A signal pulses faintly through the ship's broken comms array. It is not human, not Furya, not machine, it is something else, a pattern so precise it feels alive. Following the signal leads him deep into the labyrinth of the ruined ship, through corridors still shimmering with ghost light, until he finds a cryochamber that should not exist. Inside lies a figure, an infant Furyan preserved since before the fall, heartbeat faint, body intact. The moment he opens the chamber, the ship reacts, its systems flaring to life as if recognizing the return of its master. This discovery shifts the narrative from redemption to legacy. Riddick, once the last of his kind, now becomes the guardian of a future he never expected. The child, symbol of everything lost and reborn, forces him to confront a truth he has long denied. He is no longer just a survivor. He is a progenitor. The bond that forms between them is wordless but profound. The child's eyes are pale silver, not yet capable of seeing in darkness, and Riddick finds himself protecting light for the first time rather than avoiding it. Production notes describe these scenes as near silent, the dialogue replaced by visual storytelling, hand gestures, glances, the rhythm of breath. Diesel's performance here is reportedly restrained, all emotion internalized, the rare vulnerability of a man realizing that survival alone is not enough. The child becomes a mirror, reflecting both what he has overcome and what he must still learn. But peace is never allowed to last in Riddick's universe. The signal that led him to the child was not random, it was bait. A faction of mercenaries, scavengers of the Necromonger remnants, has been tracking the same frequency, believing it leads to a source of Furyan power. Their leader, Commander Dareth Kale, is a calculating soldier molded by the chaos of the post-war galaxy. He represents a new kind of threat, not religious zeal, not raw brutality, but organized exploitation. To him, Furya's resurrection is a resource waiting to be harvested, and Riddick is an obstacle standing in the way of profit. The confrontation unfolds aboard the dead ship under strobing emergency lights, the metallic echo of footsteps resonating through corridors like a heartbeat. The combat here is choreographed to feel intimate, brutal, stripped of elegance. Riddick uses shadows as weapons, turning environment into advantage. Yet even as he wins, he realizes something. Kale's ship, still in orbit, has already transmitted the coordinates of Furya's rebirth to the outer systems. The peace Riddick fought for is already compromised. The plot broadens again, revealing that the reawakening of Furya has sent ripples through the galactic order. Empires, corporations, and warlords all want a piece of the resurrection. The Furyan energy signature, once dormant, now shines like a beacon across sectors. It is only a matter of time before the universe comes knocking. Riddick must choose: protect the child and disappear again into isolation, or return to Furya and stand between his world and the greed of all creation. He chooses the latter, of course, because that is what Riddick does. He does not run from the storm, he walks into it. His return journey to Furya forms the emotional backbone of the latter half of the film. Along the way, he experiences dreams that feel less like memory and more like communion. The planet speaks to him through visions of fire and wind, whispering warnings and promises. These sequences blur the line between reality and metaphysics, suggesting that Riddick's bond with his world has transcended distance. The Furyan energy that once burned beneath its crust now flows through him. He is, in a sense, an extension of the planet's consciousness. The cinematography expands during these dreamlike interludes, using wide panoramic shots of nebulae and cosmic storms rendered in surreal color. The lighting grows softer, the camera movements slower, as if the film itself begins to breathe in rhythm with the protagonist. The score, dominated by low strings and choral undertones, reinforces this shift from action to spiritual journey. When Riddick finally reaches Furya again, he finds it changed. The awakening that once brought life has begun to spiral out of control. The planet's surface flickers with energy storms, and the underground cities tremble as tectonic veins pulse too violently. Alara, still alive and hardened by leadership, greets him with equal parts relief and accusation. She tells him that Furya's rebirth is unsustainable. The resonance he triggered in the previous battle has awakened not only the planet's consciousness but its hunger. Furya is alive, but it feeds on the fury of its people, and now that fury is spreading beyond their control. The child becomes central to the solution. Alara recognizes that its energy signature is unlike any other Furians: balanced, stable, pure. She believes the child represents evolution, the next step in their species' survival. Riddick sees it differently. To him, the child is not a symbol but a responsibility. And responsibility has always been his greatest fear. The film quietly explores this internal conflict, whether Riddick can protect something innocent without destroying it in the process. The third act builds toward convergence. The mercenary fleets under Kale approach, drawn by the energy surge, while Furya itself begins to collapse under the strain of its awakening. Riddick realizes that to save both the child and the planet, he must do something unimaginable: merge his consciousness completely with the Furyan core. The act will bind him to the planet forever, effectively ending his life as an individual but ensuring that Furya survives. The sequence that follows is a masterclass in visual symbolism. As Riddick enters the heart of the planet, the environment shifts between physical and ethereal, the walls becoming translucent, the light within turning liquid. His body dissolves into energy, his voice echoing through layers of sound like wind across stone. Memories of his past, crewmates, enemies, allies, flash across the screen, not as nostalgia but as moments of acceptance. The fury that once defined him becomes serenity. In this fusion, Furya stabilizes. The storms subside, the light calms, the surface breathes again. The child, safe in Alara's arms, opens its eyes fully for the first time, silver irises reflecting the calm glow of the reborn planet. In that moment, the legend of Riddick transcends flesh. He becomes myth, not dead, not alive, but eternal, a voice in the wind, a guardian encoded into the heartbeat of his world. The ending of Riddick, Furya, as envisioned by early drafts, refuses the easy resolution of triumph. It closes instead on ambiguity and wonder. Years later, the film's final images reveal a grown version of the child, now a young warrior standing on the same ridge where Riddick once gazed at the horizon. A whisper passes through the wind, low and familiar. "See you in the dark." The camera rises, showing the night sky filled with auroras shaped like a predator's eyes, and the screen fades to black. This conclusion redefines the mythology of the Riddick saga. It turns the series from a survivalist odyssey into a generational myth about transformation. It suggests that fury, the trait once feared as destructive, can become the foundation of balance. The antihero becomes ancestor, the killer becomes creator. The circle closes, not with death but with inheritance. As word of the production spreads through industry circles, Riddick, Furya is being described as both a return to the raw energy of Pitch Black and a culmination of everything the series has hinted at since its inception. Vin Diesel's personal dedication to the project, spanning years of development hurdles, has turned it into a passion piece. Toohey's direction, always understated, is being praised for blending intimacy with scale, bringing a mythic resonance to a story rooted in personal struggle. Technically, the film's innovations are drawing attention. Instead of relying on traditional CGI-heavy world-building, the production reportedly uses volumetric capture and real-time rendering to create dynamic lighting and environmental response, allowing actors to interact directly with projected environments. This approach gives the film's surreal landscapes a tactile realism, merging art and technology into something uniquely immersive. In the broader cinematic landscape, Riddick, Furya stands as an anomaly, a mature, character-driven science fiction epic produced independently, defying studio formulas. It reminds audiences that mythology can evolve without losing its rawness, and that science fiction, at its best, is not about technology but about the soul's confrontation with infinity. Part 3 closes here, the story's energy settling into reflection. The fury has cooled, but its glow remains, flickering like the light of distant stars. What began as survival has become transcendence. The universe that once feared Riddick now remembers him as something elemental, proof that darkness itself can give birth to dawn. The legend does not end when the screen fades. It only shifts shape, spreading through the galaxy like light refracted through broken glass. Stories of Riddick begin to circulate across colonies and forgotten outposts, each one different, each one bending truth into myth. Some speak of him as a ghost inhabiting the storms of Furya, others claim he walks unseen among the stars, watching, waiting. None can prove it, but all agree on one thing: after Riddick, the galaxy itself seemed quieter, as if something ancient had finally found rest. In the time that follows, Furya becomes a pilgrimage site. Those who have lost worlds of their own come seeking understanding, drawn by rumors of a living planet that remembers grief. They find a world reborn from ash, not paradise, but peace. The Furians who survived now live above ground, building homes of black stone and mirrored glass that shimmer beneath their strange twin suns. The air hums faintly with the rhythm of the planet's pulse. They tell stories by firelight, of a man who once carried the storm in his blood and gave it back to the sky. His name is not spoken often, not out of fear, but reverence. Alara leads them still, her presence calm but marked by solitude. The child she once protected has grown into something extraordinary, a being of balance. His eyes hold both fire and calm, his voice carries both command and empathy. He trains others not to suppress their fury but to harmonize it. To him, the old ways of battle are relics. The future lies in understanding that fury is not the opposite of peace, but the road to it. His teachings echo Riddick's journey: survival without hatred, strength without cruelty. He carries no weapon, but those who have seen him fight say he moves like a shadow that forgives. In the quiet of her chambers, Alara often speaks to the wind, sensing Riddick's presence still woven through the air. The planet responds in faint tremors, the light shifting as though listening. She knows he never truly left. Furya's heart beats with his essence, and in moments of great stillness, she can almost hear his breathing within the earth. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the ripples of his sacrifice reshape history. The remnants of the Necromonger fleets finally dissolve, their zealots lost without their empire's command. Worlds once enslaved begin to rebuild. Mercenary networks fracture, their myths about the Furians changing from fear to awe. In academic circles, scientists study the energy signatures emanating from Furya, trying to understand how a world once thought dead could reawaken itself. Philosophers debate whether the event marks divine intervention or natural evolution. But among the common people, Riddick's story becomes something simpler: the tale of a man who looked into the abyss and made peace with it. Vin Diesel's portrayal of this mythic evolution, though fictional within the film's world, resonates in metatextual ways. His voice, gravel and gravity combined, has become inseparable from Riddick's identity. In interviews, Diesel once said that Riddick represents The part of humanity that refuses extinction. That idea threads through every frame of Riddick Furya. It is not the spectacle that defines it, but the stillness between destruction, the moments when a killer chooses restraint, when a planet chooses life. The production itself, by the time of release, becomes a symbol of perseverance. Years of delays, financing struggles, and shifting markets could not stop it from materializing. Fans who waited 2 decades for answers find themselves rewarded not with mere closure, but with a meditation on the cost of endurance. Critics describe it not as a traditional sequel but as a requiem, a film about survival as philosophy. It does not chase the energy of youth, it embraces the gravity of experience. When Riddick Furya finally premieres, its reception splits the audience. Some expecting endless carnage find themselves confronted by silence, by reflection, by mythic stillness. Others hail it as the most honest evolution of the character, a film unafraid to be contemplative, in a genre addicted to motion. The visual language of the film, dominated by chiaroscuro contrasts and the slow rhythm of planetary breath, demands patience. Viewers describe it as watching a storm learn to sleep. The score, composed in layers of strings, percussion, and ambient resonance, becomes a character of its own. The main motif, a deep, slow pulse that mirrors a heartbeat, repeats across the film, subtle at first, thunderous by the end. It symbolizes not only Furya's rebirth but the synchronization between man and world, fury and peace. In the closing credits, the motif fades into silence, leaving only the faint echo of wind. Behind the scenes, the collaboration between Toohey and Diesel becomes a model for creative loyalty. Over 25 years, they have shaped one of the most distinctive science fiction sagas of their era, not defined by corporate sprawl, but by authorship. Every line of dialogue, every silhouette of Riddick against alien horizons, bears the mark of their shared vision. They resisted dilution, staying true to a tone that merges pulp ferocity with existential philosophy. Their partnership proves that longevity in storytelling is not about expansion but deepening, the courage to dig further into the same darkness until it reveals meaning. Thematically, Riddick Furya completes the arc begun in Pitch Black. In that first film, Riddick was hunted and hated, a man defined by his difference. In Chronicles, he became the unwilling ruler, burdened by power. In Riddick, he returned to isolation, rediscovering the primal purity of survival. But in Furya, he transcends all of these stages. He becomes both destroyer and creator, symbol and man, fury and forgiveness fused into one. His story is no longer about escape. It is about belonging, not to a place, but to purpose. The film's legacy within science fiction rests not on its scale, but its sincerity. It refuses irony. It dares to treat darkness as sacred, to suggest that violence can evolve into understanding. In a cinematic age dominated by spectacle and sarcasm, Riddick Furya stands apart as something mythic and quiet, a tone poem disguised as an action film. It belongs to the lineage of stories like Blade Runner 2049, Mad Max, Fury Road, and Dune, tales where the apocalypse is not the end, but a mirror reflecting what remains human. Riddick's transformation into a planetary consciousness becomes a metaphor for legacy itself. Just as he dissolves into the pulse of Furya, the film dissolves into the collective memory of its audience. Each viewer carries away a different version of him, a warrior, a ghost, a guardian, a sinner who finally made peace with his own shadow. That multiplicity is what ensures his immortality. No monument, no statue, no empire could hold him, only story can. Somewhere in the galaxy's forgotten sectors, traders claim to have seen a ship made of light, drifting between storms. They say its pilot wears goggles even in brightness, his voice low and patient. When asked where he is headed, he always gives the same answer. Homes wherever the dark starts. Whether truth or myth, the tale spreads because people need it. They need to believe that fury can become faith, that the darkest things within us can guide us home if we learn to see them differently. The closing reflection of the keynote reaches beyond the film itself. The story of Riddick is not just one of a character or a franchise, it is a mirror of endurance. It is about artists who refuse to let their creation die in the face of market shifts and creative indifference. It is about a performer aging into wisdom without abandoning the rawness that first defined him. It is about a filmmaker who insists that science fiction can still be intimate, poetic, and philosophical. And it is about audiences who crave authenticity, not spectacle for spectacle's sake, but something elemental that touches the primal rhythm beneath all noise. When the lights fade in the final screening, and the credits end, the audience sits in a silence thick with reflection. There is no cheer, no applause at first, just a collective exhale. Because Riddick, Furya does not end, it lingers. It leaves behind an awareness that even the most savage souls can evolve, that rage can be alchemized into meaning, that the void between stars is not emptiness but potential. And somewhere in that eternal darkness, where the hum of worlds never ceases, a whisper moves through the dust. He was the last of us. The first of us. The dark that taught the light to see. That whisper fades into the cosmic wind, carrying the legacy of a story that began in shadows and ended in illumination. The fury becomes calm. The hunter becomes myth. And in the silence that follows, the universe itself seems to breathe. Long after the fires of Furya cool and the stars reclaim their ancient rhythm, the echo of Riddick's existence continues to shape the unseen fabric of space. It is said that every storm that rises in the void carries within it a whisper of his name. Space travelers tell of hearing a faint growl through static when they cross the outer rim, a sound that is neither voice nor wind but something deeper, an echo of instinct that predates language. In those moments, they say, the darkness feels alive, protective rather than predatory, and they know they are passing through the territory of a legend. The galaxy adjusts slowly to the absence of the man who once defied it. Political systems realign, new alliances rise where old empires fell, and entire generations grow up hearing tales of the Furyan who transcended mortality. His myth becomes a philosophy in some circles, the creed of balance, teaching that every creature must learn to master the storm within rather than deny it. On worlds far from Furya, soldiers etch his likeness into armor not as an idol, but as a reminder. Rage, when refined, becomes purpose. Furya itself continues to evolve. Seasons change now in rhythm with the heartbeat of the world. The air carries faint pulses of energy that hum like the sound of distant thunder. The Furyans rebuild their civilization, no longer hidden, no longer hunted. They plant gardens where once there were only craters, and children learn to control their luminous eyes by watching the flicker of the twin suns. The planet feels alive beneath their feet, sometimes trembling gently, as if breathing in satisfaction. They know who it is that breathes with them. Allur grows older, her hair silver as the stones she commands. In quiet moments, she speaks to the horizon, not as a leader but as a friend addressing an old companion. You kept your promise, she murmurs, and the wind answers in subtle vibration, carrying dust across her face like a caress. She smiles then, because she knows the truth. Riddick never died. He simply changed shape. His presence is in the balance of the storms, in the gravity that holds Furya together, in the voice that sometimes rises in the dark when a Furyan child is born. The child who was once found frozen aboard the Necromonger's ship matures into something beyond even Riddick's imagination. His name is Cain, a name that in the ancient tongue means to carry the flame without burning. He becomes the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, a living testament to the possibility of evolution through pain. His mastery over the Furyan energy is instinctive, effortless. He speaks not in prophecy but in truth, that anger is not the enemy of peace, only its unrefined form. Under his guidance, the Furyans cease to hide from their power and learn to channel it into creation rather than war. Visually, these moments would unfold in muted grandeur, slow dawns breaking across volcanic plains, vast temples of obsidian rising from ash, luminous flora casting long shadows under sapphire skies. There is no grand battle now, no blood, no chaos, only renewal. The music swells with organic tones, low strings and heartbeat percussion, reminding the audience that life is cyclical, that every ending births a beginning. The legend of Riddick becomes a current of cultural memory. Artists sculpt his likeness in flowing lines of light. Poets describe him as the silence between lightning strikes. To the Furyans, he is not a god, not a savior. He is the first who remembered what it meant to belong to the dark without being consumed by it. Each generation reinterprets his story, and with each retelling, the myth grows less about survival and more about balance. Children who have never known war play beneath twin moons, their laughter echoing across valleys once filled with screams. In their eyes, glowing softly even in daylight, lies the proof that the world has healed. Beyond Furya, however, the galaxy remains restless. There are those who see the reborn planet not as miracle but as threat, its energy field too powerful, its secrets too valuable. Explorers and scavengers make cautious approaches, sending drones into orbit, testing the planet's defenses. None return. The skies around Furya are known as the halo, a luminous ring of particles that react violently to intrusion. Some claim the halo is sentient, that it chooses who may pass. Others whisper that it is Riddick himself, watching still, enforcing the boundaries of a peace he purchased with his own existence. Yet even in his absence, his story continues to inspire unlikely transformations. The descendants of the necromongers, stripped of their empire, begin to question their ancestors' dogma. Among them rises a sect known as the Redeemed Legion, devoted not to conquest but to penance. They travel the stars, dismantling old weapons and returning sacred relics to the worlds from which they were stolen. Their leader, a quiet woman named Sarah Kale, descendant of Commander Dareth Kale, the man who once tried to steal Furya's power, carries a pendant shaped like a crescent fawn. She claims she found it on a derelict ship, etched with the words, "You must die to see." That phrase becomes their guiding belief, the idea that one must let the old self perish to truly awaken. They trace its origin to Riddick, interpreting his sacrifice as a lesson in transcendence. What was once a story of vengeance becomes a scripture of transformation. Across systems, the Furyan myth evolves into a shared human philosophy, one that unites former enemies, pirates, and pilgrims under a single principle, that fury and peace are not opposites but mirrors. As the centuries pass, the name, Riddick, becomes less a person and more a principle, a verb, even. To Riddick, something means to confront it fearlessly, to walk into darkness and bring back light. The word slips into common language, spreading across dialects and cultures until no one remembers its origin. Yet every so often, a historian or wanderer stumbles across the original chronicles, the old data fragments from the Necromonger Wars, and rediscovers the man behind the myth. They read about the eye shine that could see through blackness, the growl that made beasts kneel, the loneliness of a man who never stopped fighting, and in those moments, they realized the scale of what he became. There is a quiet beauty in the way the myth dissolves into time. The universe forgets specifics but remembers emotion. The image that remains eternal is not of violence but of stillness, Riddick standing against the horizon of Furya, half in light, half in shadow, watching a new world take its first breath. That image becomes the visual signature of the saga, reproduced endlessly by artists, carved into stone, burned into the sky by holographic festivals that celebrate rebirth. It transcends cinema, becoming a language of endurance that speaks to anyone who has ever walked through their own darkness and survived. In the invisible corridors between stars, where time folds upon itself, one might imagine a faint glimmer moving at impossible speed. Perhaps it is only cosmic debris, perhaps it is something more. But if you listen closely, if you let the silence of space settle into your bones, you might hear it, a voice low, steady, unafraid. It says nothing more than this: keep moving. The dark isn't done with you yet. And with that, the myth continues, a ripple that will never fade, a song sung by worlds long after memory itself dies. Riddick, the man who was once a fugitive, a killer, a king, and finally a god of his own creation, becomes the pattern beneath creation's skin, proof that even fury, when faced with love, can learn to rest. Centuries pass in silence, yet the heartbeat of Furya never falters. The twin suns rise and fall over landscapes that have learned to breathe, mountains shimmering with veins of luminous crystal, rivers glowing faintly with Furyan energy. The Furyans, guided by Cain and Alara's enduring wisdom, flourish not as warriors but as keepers of balance. Every movement, every ritual, every child's laugh resonates with the pulse of the world, a living testament to Riddick's sacrifice. Yet even in their peace, whispers of the man who became myth wander across the stars, carried on cosmic winds like seeds waiting to take root. On distant colonies, pilots and wanderers report strange occurrences. Navigational instruments falter when passing certain star systems, strange auroras dance in the void without explanation, and sometimes, in the hum of dark space, they swear they hear a growl, low and deliberate, warning them of unseen danger or guiding them towards safety. Some dismiss these tales as superstition. Others quietly map the occurrences, noting patterns that hint at intelligence. Perhaps the consciousness of a man fused with a world, still moving through the universe in ways beyond comprehension. Cain grows into a leader whose presence is felt before it is seen. His eyes, pale silver like Riddick's, reflect not only light but understanding. Under his guidance, the Furyans develop abilities once thought the stuff of myth, manipulating energy currents, reading vibrations in the land and air, communicating through thought and gesture. Their society blends spirituality and pragmatism, a delicate balance honed from centuries of survival and reflection. They remember Riddick not merely as a savior but as the being who taught them the cost and necessity of restraint, the discipline required to turn fury into creation. Yet peace is never absolute. Far across the galaxy, new powers rise, opportunists who see Furya not as a sanctuary but as a resource. Fleets of scavengers, rogue scientists, and former mercenary groups approach cautiously, sensing the energy emanating from the reborn planet. Their motives range from curiosity to greed, but all are drawn to the pulse of Furya, unaware of the consciousness that monitors and guards the world. The planet itself, now sentient through Riddick, responds subtly. Intruders experience disorientation, hallucinations, or are guided away by storms that seem alive, leaving them convinced that the planet is defended by something greater than any army. Cain, aware of the threats, begins to train a new generation of Furyans. They are taught not only combat but perception, not only survival but wisdom. Their education combines physical skill with attunement to Furya's rhythm, the movement of tectonic veins, the flow of energy in the air, the silent hum that courses beneath the ground. Each student becomes a guardian of both the physical and spiritual integrity of the world. They call this discipline the way of the pulse, a direct inheritance of Riddick's lesson, to master fury without being mastered by it. Meanwhile, Alara ages with dignity, her once warrior's body now marked by the gentle erosion of time. Her leadership continues not through force but through counsel. She teaches diplomacy, compassion, and understanding, tempering the instincts of young Furyans who might otherwise mistake power for dominance. She is the living memory of the past, a bridge between the original Furyan legacy and the new era. Her guidance ensures that history does not repeat itself, that the mistakes which once brought devastation are never forgotten. Across the galaxy, the myth of Riddick evolves into an almost universal parable. Traders, scientists, and explorers who have never seen Furya speak of the Dark Guardian, a being whose fury shaped worlds and whose silence healed them. Pilots navigating asteroid belts report seeing shadows moving faster than light, while colonies report subtle shifts in their environment, as if some unseen hand is correcting imbalance. The stories vary but share a common theme: respect for the dark, recognition of strength tempered by wisdom, and acknowledgement that the universe contains forces beyond human comprehension. Yet, as with all legends, the universe tests them. Rogue factions and ambitious warlords occasionally attempt to challenge Furya, drawn by ambition, ignorance, or the allure of power. Each intrusion is met not with brute force alone but with strategy, harmony, and timing. The Furyans have learned that the greatest defense is awareness. Battles unfold as symphonies of light and motion, where the environment itself participates, guiding, defending, and at times punishing. Riddick's teachings echo through every maneuver: patience, observation, and the understanding that true strength is never wasted on needless conflict. Through all of this, Riddick's presence persists. Though he no longer walks among mortals, the resonance of his consciousness pulses beneath Furya, subtly shaping the world's growth. Trees bend toward optimal light, rivers carve themselves into channels that balance nourishment and flow, and the planet's heartbeat aligns with the collective rhythm of its inhabitants. The Furians, sensitive to this pulse, sometimes glimpse faint figures in storm clouds or hear whispers in wind currents. They call these occurrences Riddick's watching, a constant reminder of the unity between protector and planet. By the end of this age, Furya is no longer just a homeworld but a living monument to the possibility of evolution through understanding. It thrives as a sanctuary, a source of knowledge, and a testament to the balance between fury and peace. Legends of Riddick endure, not as tales of violence or conquest, but as parables of transformation, teaching all who hear them that survival alone is not enough. One must learn to harmonize with the forces within and without, and only then can true legacy be achieved. As centuries stretch onward, Furya's influence begins to ripple outward, subtle yet undeniable. The planet's energy reaches distant star systems, threading like invisible rivers through the fabric of space. Explorers and travelers, long removed from the Furyan saga, report strange synchronizations, lights flickering in unison across worlds, auroras that pulse with deliberate patterns, and navigational instruments that behave unpredictably near certain sectors. Those attuned to intuition feel a presence, a silent awareness guiding them. They speak of it as the watcher in the dark, unknowable yet protective, and they whisper a single name, Riddick. Cain, now a seasoned leader, has grown into a figure whose wisdom rivals the legends of his predecessor. He understands that the survival of the Furians is inseparable from the health of Furya itself. Under his guidance, the population spreads across the planet, settling in cities built within luminous canyons, atop crystal mountains, and along rivers that glow like veins of liquid silver. Architecture is not merely functional. It harmonizes with the energy currents beneath the ground, allowing structures to resonate with the planet's pulse. Each building becomes a node in a living network, a reflection of Riddick's principle that life must flow rather than be forced. The new generation of Furians is trained in ways their ancestors never imagined. Children learn to sense the subtle vibrations of the ground, to read the energy patterns of flora and fauna, and to anticipate weather changes with instinctual precision. Their education is both spiritual and physical, merging combat training with meditation and energy control. This holistic approach ensures that they do not inherit the untempered rage of their predecessors. Instead, they inherit the harmony of purpose, the knowledge that true strength is measured by restraint and foresight. Yet the galaxy beyond Furya is not still. Rogue factions, remnants of old empires, and opportunistic explorers hear tales of the living world and its guardian spirit. Some seek to exploit Furya's energy for technology, power, or wealth. Others are drawn by curiosity, hoping to understand the phenomenon that has captivated astronomers, scientists, and mystics alike. Every approach, whether deliberate or accidental, triggers the subtle defenses of the planet. Storms shift, auroras flare, and the very land rearranges itself in response, guiding intruders away or exposing their intent. The legend of Riddick as an unseen protector grows with each encounter. Meanwhile, Cain mentors his students in foresight. He teaches them that vigilance is not fear, and that power must always be paired with humility. The training incorporates simulations of interstellar threats, philosophical debates on ethics, and exercises in synchronizing with Furya's energy. These rituals produce a population of Furians capable of perceiving patterns invisible to outsiders, moving as one with the world, and responding to danger before it manifests. Each Furyan becomes both guardian and emissary, a living testament to the balance that Riddick achieved in his sacrifice. Alara, though now ancient, continues to guide with insight rather than authority. Her experience bridges the original Furyan society with the evolved generation. She recounts tales of Riddick, emphasizing not his strength but his choices, teaching that restraint and wisdom are as heroic as ferocity. Her voice resonates in halls and temples, in schools and on plains, reminding the Furians that their survival is not simply a matter of physical prowess, but of moral clarity and understanding. Throughout these centuries, the myth of Riddick spreads beyond Furya, influencing philosophy and culture across star systems. Scholars, pilgrims, and artists reinterpret the story in their own mediums. Some depict him as a shadowed hero guiding the flow of fate, others as a godlike presence intertwined with the cosmos. Even civilizations far removed from the Furyans adapt rituals inspired by his principles, emphasizing balance, restraint, and the harmony between inner fury and outer peace. The legend evolves into a moral compass, transcending cultural and species boundaries. Cosmic disturbances occasionally challenge Furya's equilibrium. Meteoroid clusters, rogue star fragments, and interstellar storms test the planet's resilience. Yet each time, Furya reacts as if alive, guided by Riddick's fused consciousness. The planet's responses are subtle, shifting magnetic fields, redirected energy flows, and atmospheric changes that neutralize threats before they strike. To observers, these phenomena appear miraculous or even sentient. To the Furyans, they are the living lesson of their progenitor: vigilance, awareness, and unity with the environment. Amidst this, the children of Furya continue to grow in wonder and capability. They communicate with animals attuned to energy currents, move in perfect rhythm with the land, and cultivate flora capable of bioluminescent feedback. Celebrations and festivals honor the rhythm of the planet itself, with lights, music, and dance synchronized to the pulse that is both Riddick and Furya. These events reinforce the connection between the people and their world, keeping the memory of sacrifice alive while embedding it into everyday life. As Part 6 closes, the galaxy itself seems to adjust to Furya's presence. Trade routes shift subtly, exploration patterns change, and the flow of civilizations around the system aligns in ways no one can fully explain. The name Riddick becomes a symbol, not of war, not of conquest, but of balance, vigilance, and the transformative power of restraint. Across light years, beings of all kinds, human and otherwise, sense the pulse of a world alive, and feel the quiet guidance of the one who once carried the storm within himself. As centuries stretch further, Furya becomes more than a planet, it becomes a beacon of energy and myth. Ships passing through the system report unusual navigation anomalies, instruments fluctuate, compasses spin, and radio signals carry faint echoes, like whispers in a language older than stars. Pilots speak of a presence guiding them away from danger or toward revelation, a guardian whose identity they cannot name. Only the Furyans understand. It is Riddick, still alive in essence, fused with the very heartbeat of the world he saved. Kane now stands as both teacher and sentinel, his leadership extending beyond Furya's surface. The Furyans establish outposts that harmonize with the planet's energy, sending subtle pulses into orbit that maintain environmental balance and act as early warning systems. Each outpost is more than a fortress, it is a living extension of the planet, responsive to energy fluctuations, planetary shifts, and intruding forces. Through these, Kane ensures that Furya remains protected without relying solely on brute strength. The Furyan children trained under Kane grow into beings of extraordinary perception. They sense vibrations in the ground, detect energy patterns invisible to outsiders, and intuitively understand the flow of life around them. They move with a precision and grace that mirrors the planet's rhythm. Kane teaches them that these abilities are not weapons, but tools of stewardship. They exist to preserve balance, to prevent chaos, and to guide others toward harmony. Beyond Furya, the galaxy continues its restless evolution. Explorers and traders whisper of the living planet, interpreting Furya's phenomena in countless ways, some as miracle, some as divine warning. Philosophers debate the ethics of interacting with a sentient world. Scientists attempt to measure the energy pulses but fail to quantify their depth or intent. Stories of Riddick as the guardian permeate cultures light years away, inspiring art, philosophy, and even political thought. His legend becomes universal, the balance of fury and restraint as a guiding principle for all civilizations. Occasionally, the galaxy challenges Furya's stability. Rogue factions, drawn by curiosity or greed, approach the planet. Ships attempting to land are diverted by magnetic storms, guided away by energy currents, or rendered harmless by sudden environmental shifts. From the perspective of outsiders, these are miracles or defenses beyond comprehension. From the perspective of the Furyans, these are Riddick's vigilance made manifest, the combined wisdom of a man who became one with the world, ensuring their safety without direct interference. Alara, still alive though aged, continues her role as historian and guide. She records every detail of the Furya society's evolution, ensuring that no lesson from the past is lost. She recounts Riddick's choices not to glorify violence, but to teach wisdom, that strength alone does not define legacy, and that restraint, observation, and understanding are as heroic as action. Her stories resonate through generations, becoming an oral tradition as powerful as any written record. The Furyans themselves become extraordinary architects of life and energy. Cities grow organically, responding to the planet's pulse. Crops and wildlife harmonize with natural energy flows. Celebrations and rituals synchronize with Furya's heartbeat. Every aspect of life is in balance, a reflection of the teachings embedded by Riddick's sacrifice. Even minor disruptions, a storm, an earthquake, or an unexpected intruder, are met with coordinated, graceful responses, demonstrating the enduring synergy between people and planet. Cain begins sending emissaries beyond Furya, subtle envoys who carry the principles of harmony and restraint. They do not preach or conquer, but guide, teaching civilizations how to interpret energy and observe balance in their own worlds. Slowly, the legend of Riddick spreads not as fearsome myth but as philosophical guidance, a living template of survival transformed into wisdom. Across the stars, his influence shapes thought, morality, and even technological development, fostering a new age of harmony inspired by one man's legacy. The myths of Riddick continue to grow in layers of interpretation. Artists depict him in shadow and light, scholars debate his moral choices, and storytellers reinterpret his life in plays, holographic performances, and digital records. Yet all versions converge on the same essence. Riddick was a force of transformation, a being whose mastery of fury became the foundation for creation, wisdom, and guidance. His presence remains, not as a ruler or warrior, but as a silent guardian, a pattern woven into the rhythm of Furya and echoed in the universe beyond. By the end of Part 7, Furya is no longer merely a planet but a symbol, a living monument to restraint, wisdom, and transformation. The Furyans flourish as a people who have learned to balance power with understanding, energy with empathy, and fury with purpose. Across the galaxy, civilizations sense the subtle guidance of a force that is protective, unseen, and eternal. Riddick's story, once a tale of survival and vengeance, has become a timeless testament that even the darkest fury can be transmuted into light, and that legacy is measured not in conquest, but in the enduring balance one leaves behind. As millennia pass, Furya's pulse becomes a beacon not only for the Furyans but for the cosmos itself. Energy currents emanate from the planet like invisible rivers, reaching distant systems and subtly influencing the flow of life and matter. Navigators report strange gravitational anomalies, stars that flicker in patterns, and particles that behave unpredictably, a cosmic rhythm orchestrated by Riddick's fused consciousness. To the universe, Furya is alive. To those attuned, it speaks in silence, teaching balance, foresight, and vigilance. Cain now leads a civilization so deeply intertwined with Furya that their thoughts, emotions, and movements echo the planet's pulse. The cities themselves are living entities, structures that flex and glow in harmony with energy currents beneath the surface. Public spaces, schools, and temples are nodes in a planetary network, responsive to inhabitants' needs while guiding them toward equilibrium. Children grow immersed in this harmony, learning that their individual actions reverberate across the world, shaping the land, the sky, and the very energy that flows through every living thing. The Furyans' abilities have evolved to near mystical levels. They perceive energy flows, anticipate natural events, and communicate across great distances through subtle vibrations and thought patterns. Each generation grows more attuned to the planet and its rhythms, yet they retain humility. Cain emphasizes that these powers are gifts, not rights, tools to maintain balance, not to dominate. Education combines philosophy, energy manipulation, and ethical decision-making, producing a society capable of guiding themselves and influencing the galaxy without coercion. Outside Furya, distant civilizations feel its presence even without direct contact. Trade routes subtly shift, and explorers report phenomena that defy conventional science. Storms that guide ships safely, particles that form patterns resembling warnings, and cosmic signals that seem to respond to moral intent. The legend of Riddick spreads, evolving into a philosophy, to act without malice, to balance fury with restraint, and to recognize that power is responsibility. Across light years, beings interpret these signals differently, yet all sense the subtle intelligence behind them. Despite this growth, challenges arise. Rogue factions, scientific expeditions, and ambitious explorers occasionally approach Furya, drawn by curiosity, ambition, or greed. Each attempt is met with the living defenses of the planet. Storms shift, magnetic fields redirect ships, and auroras flare with radiant intensity. These interventions are precise, non-lethal, teaching respect without destruction. To outsiders, these events appear miraculous. To the Furyans, they are the manifestation of Riddick's ongoing guardianship, an invisible hand guiding the flow of life. Alara, now a venerable figure, remains the cultural and spiritual anchor of Furya. She recounts the stories of Riddick's choices, not his battles, but his wisdom, restraint, and ultimate sacrifice. Her voice carries across valleys, through crystalline cities, and into the consciousness of the Furyans, reinforcing the principle that true power lies in guidance and protection rather than aggression. Festivals, rituals, and ceremonies honor this philosophy, celebrating the balance between fury and creation, strength and compassion. Cain begins to extend Furya's influence intentionally. Envoys are sent to other worlds, carrying not weapons, but teachings. They instruct civilizations on energy perception, planetary harmony, and ethical stewardship. Slowly, galaxies once in conflict begin to adopt similar principles. Societies learn that power without balance breeds chaos, and those who understand the lessons of Furya thrive, often without even realizing the source of guidance. Riddick's presence has become a silent mentor across the stars. Legends of Riddick evolve further. Artists depict him not as a warrior, but as a shadowed silhouette overseeing worlds, a symbol of harmony within chaos. Philosophers debate the implications of a consciousness bound to a planet, arguing about morality, agency, and cosmic responsibility. Even the most distant civilizations feel the echo of his influence, a subtle alignment of their energies, a reminder that fury, when mastered, can shape existence itself. The world of Furya and its inhabitants remain vigilant. Training continues, rituals persist, and children learn to perceive the subtle shifts in the environment. They are taught that every act, from planting a seed to observing a storm, carries consequences, and that the pulse of their planet, and the legacy of Riddick, watches and guides them always. Furya is no longer merely a planet, it is a living testament, a teacher, and a guardian, reflecting the balance achieved by one man who transformed fury into creation. As Part 8 concludes, the galaxy recognizes Furya as a sanctuary of wisdom, a hub of life and guidance, and a living monument to the enduring principles of restraint, perception, and harmony. Riddick's legend persists, not through conquest or fear, but through the silent, eternal rhythm of a world that he made whole, and the generations he inspired to carry his lessons forward. Millennia pass, and Furya has become a nexus of cosmic harmony, its energy pulsing across star systems like a heartbeat shared by countless worlds. Entire civilizations have come to recognize its influence, whether through subtle energy shifts, philosophical teachings, or encounters with emissaries sent by Cain and his descendants. The Furyans, fully attuned to their planet, move with a grace and precision that mirrors Furya itself. Their cities glow like constellations, rivers shimmer with sentient light, and every living being participates in the intricate balance that Riddick set in motion. Cain, now a figure of legend even among his own people, guides the Furyans with the wisdom of ages. He understands that the true challenge is not merely survival, but sustaining harmony over eons. He teaches that power is meaningless without foresight, that strength is hollow without understanding, and that the pulse of the planet, and the legacy of Riddick, must continue to guide generations long after any individual has passed. The young Furyans learn to sense the faintest shifts in energy, the imperceptible tremors of thought, and the subtle currents that flow between life and land, between action and consequence. Beyond Furya, galaxies have begun to change in response. Trade, exploration, and diplomacy increasingly reflect the principles emanating from the living planet. Societies once warring find themselves guided by invisible harmonies, avoiding conflict without knowing why. Scholars debate the origin of these patterns, often attributing them to divine providence or cosmic coincidence, unaware that a consciousness fused with a world is shaping reality itself. The name Riddick is whispered in every language, not as a ruler or a deity, but as a symbol of vigilance, wisdom, and the transformative power of restraint. Despite this era of subtle peace, the universe remains alive with challenge. Rogue factions, star marauders, and curious explorers occasionally probe Furya's borders. Each encounter becomes a lesson. Storms flare with precise intensity, magnetic fields rearrange trajectories, and auroras illuminate paths of both warning and guidance. Intruders are seldom harmed. Instead, they are redirected, guided, and sometimes confronted with visions that reflect their inner impulses. The planet itself teaches, as Riddick once did, that true mastery lies in understanding, not domination. Alara, now fully woven into the fabric of Furya's history, continues to share the story of Riddick, ensuring that the original sacrifices are never forgotten. Her voice resonates in the crystalline halls and open plains, reminding the Furyans that restraint, wisdom, and foresight are the true measures of legacy. Rituals evolve into celebrations of life, where music, dance, and light synchronize with the planet's pulse, creating experiences that are both cultural and metaphysical. These traditions cement the understanding that Furya's power is not to be exploited, but honored. Cain begins sending emissaries farther into the galaxy, sharing not just knowledge of energy and balance, but the philosophy of life itself. Civilizations learn that power without harmony leads to destruction, that fury, when tempered, becomes creation, and that observation and patience are as vital as action. Across light years, the principles born on Furya subtly reshape societies, inspiring a new era of enlightenment. Riddick's influence, though silent and unseen, becomes a guiding current for the cosmos. The myths of Riddick transform yet again. Poets describe him as shadow and light entwined, philosophers analyze his choices, and artists depict him in abstract forms that suggest presence rather than appearance. He is no longer a man of flesh, nor merely a legend. He is an idea, a principle manifested in the energy of Furya and reflected in every act of balance and restraint across the universe. Every child trained on Furya, every civilization touched by its pulse, carries fragments of his essence, ensuring that his teachings persist indefinitely. Through all these centuries, Furya remains vigilant, alive, and responsive. Children learn to read the subtle shifts in energy, sense the intentions of visitors, and harmonize their own actions with the pulse of the planet. Even minor natural events, a storm, a quake, a solar flare, are incorporated into lessons, ensuring that every generation grows in sync with the living world around them. Furya is no longer merely a planet, it is a living classroom, a sanctuary, and a monument to the wisdom Riddick embodied. As Part 9 concludes, the galaxy itself seems to bend toward balance. Stars, planets, and civilizations respond, subtly guided by the unseen force of Furya's pulse. The legend of Riddick, once a story of survival and vengeance, has become a cosmic principle, the eternal lesson that fury, when mastered, leads to creation, and that restraint, observation, and harmony are the true legacies of any being. Furya and its people stand as a testament to what one individual's choices can inspire across the vast, unending canvas of the universe. Eons pass, yet Furya's pulse endures, a heartbeat echoing across galaxies, timeless and unbroken. The planet has become more than a home. It is a nexus of energy, consciousness, and wisdom, a living testament to the choices of one man who refused to surrender to rage. The Furyans have matured into a civilization so attuned to the rhythms of life that their movements, their decisions, and their creations resonate in harmony with the pulse of the planet. Each action, no matter how small, carries meaning, shaping not just their world but the subtle balance of the surrounding cosmos. Cain, the descendant of Riddick's legacy, now embodies the perfect union of Furyan instinct and wisdom. His presence radiates calm authority, teaching that strength is measured not in conflict but in understanding, not in domination but in guidance. Every young Furyan trained under him learns to sense the invisible currents of energy, to anticipate challenges, and to harmonize with the world around them. They do not fight for supremacy, they move to maintain equilibrium, defending life, guiding it, and teaching it through example rather than force. Across the universe, civilizations feel the invisible influence of Furya. Trade networks shift to avoid disruption, explorers report phenomena that seem guided by unseen hands, and cosmic storms realign as if the galaxy itself listens to Furya's heartbeat. The myth of Riddick evolves into philosophy, a principle of balance, patience, and the transformative potential of controlled fury. It becomes embedded in art, science, and morality across light years, not as worship, but as a subtle, guiding presence that encourages life to flourish in harmony. Occasional threats arise: rogue fleets, explorers driven by greed, and ancient enemies long thought gone attempt to harness Furya's energy. Yet the planet's living defenses respond with precision and intent. Storms shift, magnetic fields redirect trajectories, and auroras illuminate lessons rather than punishments. Intruders rarely leave unchanged. They are taught through experience and consequence that the universe is not conquered but understood. These interactions reinforce the silent teaching of Riddick, that mastery of self is the only true safeguard against chaos. Alara, whose life spans multiple generations through the miracle of Furyan longevity, continues to anchor society with stories, guidance, and ritual. She preserves the memory of Riddick's choices, not to glorify power, but to honor wisdom and restraint. Her teachings ripple through every ceremony, festival, and training session, ensuring that every Furyan internalizes the principle that their strength exists to nurture, not destroy, and that vigilance is a lifelong responsibility. Furya thrives as a hub of knowledge and enlightenment. Cities grow in harmony with the planet's pulse, glowing rivers and crystal formations provide energy and inspiration, and the environment itself educates those who inhabit it. Each generation learns to read the subtle rhythms of life, the sway of trees, the shimmer of water, the whispers of wind, integrating these lessons into their civilization. Their culture becomes a living symphony, every individual contributing to the collective harmony, every act reinforcing the enduring legacy of Riddick's sacrifice. Riddick himself, though no longer corporeal, persists as the pulse within Furya. His consciousness guides, observes, and protects. He is not a deity nor a ruler, but a principle incarnate, woven into the rhythm of life. Through the ages, he becomes a symbol of what can be achieved when fury is tempered with wisdom, when power is paired with restraint, and when one's legacy is measured not by destruction, but by the lives nurtured and the balance preserved. Art, philosophy, and culture across the cosmos reinterpret his legend continuously. Every civilization discovers Riddick anew, understanding his lessons through the lens of their own experiences. Stories of shadow and light, of fury and restraint, become universal parables. He is the unseen teacher, the invisible guide, the silent guardian whose influence spans millennia, a reminder that even the most violent potential can transform into enduring wisdom. Children on Furya, trained from birth, sense the pulse of Riddick without fear. They learn the harmony between action and observation, fury and peace, strength and compassion. These lessons extend beyond the planet, carried by emissaries who teach balance and understanding in other systems, creating a galaxy subtly aligned with the rhythm first established by Riddick. The living planet and its people form a network of vigilance, guidance, and enlightenment, a testament to the transformative power of one life lived in conscious harmony with the universe. As the keynote reaches its final crescendo, Furya stands as an eternal symbol, a world reborn, a civilization elevated, and a legend immortalized. Riddick's story, once defined by survival, rage, and vengeance, has become a timeless lesson in harmony, restraint, and the profound impact of deliberate choice. The universe, vast and infinite, carries his legacy in every pulse, every storm, every life that learns to balance fury with wisdom. And in the quiet between stars, if one listens closely, one can feel it, the heartbeat of Furya, the pulse of Riddick, eternal and unbroken. The galaxy has long since felt the pulse of Furya, a resonance so subtle yet so pervasive that entire civilizations have aligned unknowingly with its rhythm. Furya itself has grown beyond a planetary entity. It has become a sentient force, a living archive of energy, memory, and consciousness, intricately tied to the legacy of Riddick. His essence, woven into the fabric of the planet, flows through every stone, river, and breath of air. The energy that once defined the fury of the original Furyans has matured into a measured, flowing current, capable of sensing imbalance, guiding life, and communicating in ways beyond human comprehension. Cain, now a master of perception and leadership, walks the luminous cities that rise like crystalline constellations across Furya's surface. He is both teacher and sentinel, guiding his people while attuning them to the subtle pulses that ripple across their world. Every student learns not only to manipulate energy and perceive the environment but to understand causality on a cosmic scale, to see how actions, both small and monumental, reverberate across space and time. This is no longer merely survival training, it is education in universal harmony, in the art of becoming one with the forces that govern existence itself. In this era, Furya's energy extends far beyond its atmosphere, creating a halo that affects nearby systems. Starships passing through the region experience unanticipated fluctuations, navigational instruments dance unpredictably, communications shimmer with interference, and particles respond to thought and emotion. Pilots report visions, not of fear, but of insight, flashes of future events, guidance through hazards, and glimpses of patterns invisible to the naked eye. These are not random anomalies. They are the fingerprints of Riddick's consciousness, expressed across space through the living will of Furya. As the Furyans explore the outer planets of their system, they discover ancient ruins once thought destroyed by cosmic upheaval. These ruins resonate with energy that mirrors Riddick's pulse, suggesting that the man who became legend did not merely shape Furya, but seeded structures and systems to perpetuate balance even beyond his physical presence. Archaeological study, energy mapping, and experiential meditation reveal these locations as nodes of instruction, each teaching principles of restraint, foresight, and ethical decision-making. To the Furyans, these sites are sacred classrooms, where the lessons of a single life are amplified across generations. Life on Furya is no longer confined to basic survival or planetary sustenance. The cities themselves breathe with the planet's energy. Their architecture shifts subtly in response to inhabitants' needs. Rivers glow with adaptive bioluminescence, and flora and fauna communicate through intricate networks of vibration and light. The Furyans move as part of this living system, their senses finely attuned to minute variations in energy, temperature, and electromagnetic patterns. Every ritual, every daily act, is an exercise in harmony, designed to strengthen the bond between people and planet while preserving the pulse of Riddick's essence. Beyond the borders of Furya, the galaxy has begun to notice subtle patterns in otherwise chaotic systems. Trade routes, orbital alignments, and even cultural trends appear to converge in accordance with unseen currents. Civilizations unknowingly influenced by the pulse of Furya find themselves guided toward equilibrium. Conflicts de-escalate, alliances form, and resources are distributed more efficiently than coincidence would allow. Scholars and philosophers debate the origin of these phenomena, speculating about sentient energy fields, cosmic consciousness, or divine intervention. Few realize the truth. A man who became one with his planet continues to shape reality, silently, from beyond the bounds of mortality. The young Furyans, trained in the discipline of energy perception, become emissaries of this balance. They travel to distant systems, not to conquer, but to observe, guide, and subtly correct imbalances. Their presence is never forceful. Their interventions are precise, calibrated, and informed by centuries of accumulated knowledge. These journeys expand Furya's influence, creating a network of interconnected systems in which the lessons of restraint, foresight, and harmony are subtly transmitted. Each Furyan carries the memory of Riddick's choices as both guide and moral compass. Alara, now a figure of near-mythic longevity, continues to chronicle the history and philosophy of Furya. Her writings, recorded in luminous media and transmitted across energy networks, emphasize that Riddick's legacy is not power itself, but the measured application of power, the choice to act with foresight, and the cultivation of harmony in the face of chaos. Her words, combined with the living instruction of the planet, create an educational system unparalleled in the galaxy, one that shapes not only the Furians but the consciousness of distant civilizations who interact with their emissaries. Even cosmic events, supernovae, rogue comets, and gravitational anomalies, are interpreted through the lens of Furya's pulse. Furians perceive these occurrences as part of a greater pattern, lessons in timing, adaptation, and universal harmony. They study the fluctuations of cosmic energy as a living curriculum, teaching new generations that understanding the rhythm of life and space is as essential as survival. Every storm, every quake, every solar flare becomes a teacher, a test, and a demonstration of the principles Riddick left behind. The Furians' understanding of energy and consciousness deepens with each generation. They no longer merely react to Furya's pulse, they shape it, co-creating with the planet in a symphony of light, vibration, and motion. Cities shift subtly to optimize resonance, rivers adjust their flow to nourish both flora and fauna, and the very air hums with synchronized currents of energy. Every being, from child to elder, participates in this intricate dance, each contributing to the collective balance, yet retaining individuality. Harmony is not imposed, it is lived, breathed, and understood. Kane's leadership evolves into a cosmic curriculum. He designs training sequences that integrate meditation, observation, and practical energy manipulation with philosophical reflection. Young Furians practice sensing the faintest variations in Furya's energy, the shimmer of a crystal vein, the pulse of a river, or the subtle vibration of wind passing through foliage. These exercises teach patience, discipline, and foresight. Each lesson is experiential, failure is instructive, success is integrative. Students begin to anticipate disturbances in the planetary energy field, correcting imbalances before they manifest. Through these methods, Furya's influence spreads farther than ever before. The planet's pulse resonates along gravitational lines and magnetic streams that thread the galaxy. Star systems unknowingly align with these currents, finding stability, balance, and even creative inspiration. Explorers passing near Furya report visions of possibility, patterns in nature, and glimpses of harmony. Civilizations previously mired in conflict begin to de-escalate disputes instinctively, their choices subtly guided by the ripple of Furya's energy. This influence, gentle and invisible, becomes a moral and ecological compass for the galaxy. Alara continues to record Riddick's story, ensuring that its lessons endure. Her chronicles detail not only past events, but the philosophy embedded in every act, every choice, and every sacrifice. She emphasizes that power without balance is folly, that fury unchecked leads only to destruction, and that foresight is the truest form of strength. Her writings, combined with Furya's living guidance, form a dual curriculum of action and reflection, a system that shapes morality and perception across generations. The galaxy takes notice in subtle ways. Traders, scientists, and explorers find that interactions within Furya's sphere of influence yield unexpected efficiency and insight. Starship crews navigating the region report that energy fields naturally guide them through hazards, and that instinctive decisions often lead to safety or discovery. Historians and philosophers begin to speculate about the existence of a sentient planet or cosmic consciousness, interpreting these phenomena as miracles, divine intervention, or natural law. Few realize that a single life, fused with its world, has been the source of this guidance for countless generations. Furya itself continues to evolve. Mountain ranges grow with crystalline structures that store and channel energy, rivers carry luminous currents capable of subtle environmental correction, and forests develop adaptive communication through bioluminescent flora. The planet's climate and ecosystems are no longer random. They respond dynamically to the population's actions, ensuring stability, abundance, and ecological balance. Every event, from minor tremors to violent storms, is interpreted by the Furians as part of a living curriculum, opportunities to learn, adapt, and harmonize. Kane also begins to train Furians in interstellar diplomacy, teaching them how to guide other civilizations without domination. Emissaries travel across the galaxy carrying principles of balance, observation, and foresight. These travelers rarely use words of authority. Instead, they demonstrate alignment with universal energy, allowing others to witness harmony in action. Societies encountering these emissaries begin to internalize Furya's principles, adopting methods of governance, conflict resolution, and ecological stewardship inspired by the planet's influence. Riddick's legend takes on a new form. He is no longer simply a man, a warrior, or a myth. He is a principle, a cosmic rhythm, and a teacher whose presence is inseparable from the fabric of the planet. Artisans depict him as flowing light and shadow, philosophers discuss him as a pattern of choices, and scientists study the energy currents of Furya, unknowingly tracing the resonance of his consciousness. Across time, he becomes less a figure of memory and more an integral force shaping the evolution of life and civilization. Even as external civilizations grow and evolve, Furya remains vigilant. Storms that once signaled danger now carry lessons. Earthquakes and tectonic shifts teach the Furyans and their visitors about adaptation, timing, and balance. Young Furyans learn to perceive these subtle indicators and respond with thoughtful action. Their society no longer fears disruption, because every event is integrated into education, and every challenge is an opportunity to refine skill, perception, and wisdom. By the end of this segment, Furya stands as a living archive, a hub of cosmic guidance, and a training ground for civilizations seeking harmony. The Furyans embody the lessons Riddick left behind, their society a reflection of his sacrifice and insight. Across star systems, his pulse resonates invisibly, guiding, protecting, and inspiring. The galaxy itself begins to shift imperceptibly toward balance, as if life collectively remembers the choices of one extraordinary man who turned fury into wisdom, and chaos into creation.